always been interesting to me as we've done these SATtalks, the kinds of things that just get the marketplace people's eyes lit up. And in contrast to the things that get the ministry people's eyes lit up. And last year when Soledad did her talk on metrics, she used words I had never heard of before. And I got to the end of it and I asked the group, so how many of you understood what she just said? And a bunch of people shot their hands up, and I said, how many of you are marketplace people? And every single one of them was a marketplace person. And I said, are any of you ministry people? And all the ministry people's hands were down. It was like, I don't think I quite get that. But everybody in that room that is a Christ follower, that's a business person, understood what Soledad was trying to get at. And the point in all of that is that we need each other. We're not going to solve some of these problems with the clergy alone, nor are we going to solve these problems with business people alone. It's us beginning to learn how to talk. I appreciate what Frank was saying a little bit ago. And one of the things that we talk about in the work that we do is that for these things to go forward in any kind of constructive way, we have to become bilingual. To some extent, we have to learn to talk. I have to learn to talk business. I've got to understand what's really going on when a business person starts getting down to brass tacks and wanting to get to the bottom line here and this and that. And that it's not just out of an insensitivity towards the spiritual needs or any other kinds of needs of people. It's that it's the way that their mind works and that kind of stuff. The same token in the things that I have found that have been the most effective in partnerships with business people is that business person learns to talk ministry talk, if you will. I mean, there's times when my training just says I start the meeting out with talking about your family and how things are going and what about this? And then we're going to say a little prayer together. And oftentimes the business person is going, look, I've got a lot of things going on my plate right now, and I didn't come here for a church service. I came here because I thought we were going to have a meeting. Let's get to it. Or the time in which this one business guy decided he was going to have prayer at the end of the meeting instead of at the beginning of the meeting, and how that was kind of semi-offensive to the ministry people that were there, because we should start our meetings out in prayer, not end them in prayer. I mean, all those kinds of things kind of get in our way at times. And I'm finding that like speaks to like, and that by including the voices of marketplace people in the stuff that we're doing, other marketplace people out there goes, yeah, what he said, yeah, what she said. And so I've asked these folks here, I've had conversations with them. Some of them I know very, very well, and I know that they've been attracted to this conversation for various reasons. And so basically I've asked them to just share with you, what is it about this event, SATtalks? What is it about this subject that has drawn you to it to participate this year and in previous years? And a second part of that, if they'd like to, is have you been involved with any of the ministries that have spoken here? And if so, what kind of an impact have they had in your life? And so we have 2 microphones here, and who would like to start?
You knew I'd do that, yes.
So tell us who you are.
My name is Chris Harry. I own a business here in Lenexa. We're an architecture firm and a construction firm all in one. So we do that type of work in the greater Kansas City area. Some of the times we do architecture outside of the metropolitan area, but we typically don't do construction in those areas. A little more difficult to go out into an area where you don't know the local subcontractors, so we typically stay in this area. But my story goes back actually a number of years ago. We had started a program in our church, and I think it was alluded to earlier. It's called What If the Church Now, but it originally started out as Project Impact. And we partnered with a local church, which is Parkside Christian Church. And we did remember the TV show, The Extreme Home Makeover? Well, ours was very extreme, and it was a one-day makeover. And we typically went to a house where there were individuals that were handicapped in one way or another, or they were very ill, dying of cancer or whatever, and we did things that would be repairs, like electrical, mechanical, built decks for them, those kind of things. That got me thinking about missions in general, and shortly thereafter, and this all goes back into the early 2000s, I happened to read the book Toxic Charity. Now, I was just thumbing through my Kindle like I normally do, trying to find a good book to read, as I like to read a lot of books. And this book came up, and I thought, this is pretty interesting because I didn't know what it means. So I read the book, and it really kind of threw me for a loop, because missions to me were where you took off with your church or whatever, and you went and did something for somebody like we've been doing on these housing projects, and you come away feeling really good, and that was a great mission project. Well, I started wondering about that. Is what we were doing for these people, were they happy about it? Did they like it? Did they like the fact that we were invading their property doing this? I never asked the question, but I don't have an answer to it either. So shortly after I had read that book, I went with my church down to Mexico, and we renovated a house for a couple, obviously a very poor couple. And we sat around talking the first night after we had worked all that day, and I just brought up the question amongst my fellow church members, do they really want us down here? Are they mad that we're down here? Are they upset? Are we offending them by doing this? And I couldn't get an answer from anybody. And of course, our associate pastor was with us, and they kind of all looked at me like I was a little crazy. And that really got me thinking even more, and I started to believe more about the book Toxic Charity, especially the story of in that book where, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but a pastor came in to a house, or they came in and they were delivering gifts for Christmas, and they noticed that the father walked out and left the house, and they later found out that he was extremely embarrassed, and he was hurt that he couldn't provide for his kids. And of course, it made those giving feel real good, but I think it had a very negative impact on him. So lo and behold, through work and the things that we do, I get an email from Tom, and I see it's about SATtalks, and I kind of looked online, and I looked at some of the speakers, and I thought, my gosh, that's exactly what I've been thinking of. So I called Tom, we had lunch, and all of a sudden he started telling me about this project he's doing in Kansas City, Missouri with Co-op, where they're building houses and they're trying to make it sustainable within that community. Well, this was all in my head to do in an area which would be in Kansas City, Kansas. Had no idea this was being done. So it was kind of like a unique, but I don't believe God causes coincidences to happen. It was certainly a God thing that we got together, and it brought me here today, and I'm kind of on that quest. I don't know where it goes from here, but that's essentially it.
Well, and it's interesting because part of that article was highlighting the work that, Keith, that you're doing down in Nicaragua, and I think your comment to me was, man, isn't there, if we can do that in Nicaragua, why can't we be doing something like that locally in the Kansas City area?
That's exactly what I said.
And so, again, I just think there's lots of folks out there that are thinking these things, and they just don't know how to connect to other people that are asking the same kinds of questions in that whole space. I'm going to ask Judy to go next, just because. Now, Judy McDaniel and Wayne have been sponsors of SATtalks all 3 years, and I'm just so grateful for their. Wayne serves on my board, and these folks have been great friends for a long time, and I thought I would get Judy up here to say, what is it that attracts you to SATtalks and to even their business sponsor SATtalks? Tell us what you think, Judy.
We have a financial planning business in Lawrence, Kansas, and about 12 people on staff, and I'd say 10 of those 12 people are involved in a nonprofit organization, and they kind of champion that in the office. We give a lot of money in support of their projects, in support of clients' projects, in support of things that the business as a whole wants to do, both within the community and a couple of international projects as well. So when you add that all up, we have a lot of reasons to say, well, let's measure, are we doing anything that's effective with our money, especially when we're talking about employees taking days off of work to go be involved with a project. So I think that's a primary interest on the SATtalks is, are there better ways to do what we're doing? This is a primary place to learn about what's going on in the charitable world and the area of helping and sustainable ideas. What was their second question?
I don't know.
That's good. Even you can't remember.
Well, it was, and have you been involved with any of these ministries that have spoken today, or any of the ministries that have been here over the last 3 years? And if so, what impact has that had? And if you don't like that question, you can make up one and answer that.
Just make one up?
Yeah, that'll work too.
Okay. We've been involved in a lot of ministries. Certainly, my husband Wayne has been highly involved with several projects, and Tom was the one who got us involved, McDaniel Knutson involved with the India project, which has been a huge impact on our staff. And we just recently came back from a trip to India to check out how our villages that we've worked with there are doing, and we're very thrilled with that. But I'm just as thrilled with the impact, with the change in my staff's lives and in the number of our customers that ask us about that project and how it's going. I think for a business person, being in business to do good is so much more fun than being in business just to make money and show a profit. And I got to show a profit, I know that, or else we're not going to be able to keep doing good. But when it's not the primary first focus, there's an awful lot of time for fun things, both in the office and out of the office.
And it's been fun. I've been able to witness firsthand the DNA because of Wayne and Judy. They could do much of what they do out of their own personal funding, but they've chosen to leverage their business and to make it possible for people within their company to go on this journey as well, and to watch that have this rippling effect without pushing it down anybody's throat, to me, is an incredible story. Wayne did a SATtalk last year along with Peter Knutson on the impact that that's had in their business. And I would encourage business leaders to look at that and to be thinking about ways that you can do good in the world and affect the way the people that work for you think about it as well, and pushing this thing. So I'm very grateful to Wayne and Judy and McDaniel Knutson for their role in what they've been doing with SATtalks. Let's keep going down the line here.
Bill Carpenter. I had a long time career in telecom, mostly in customer care, in and out of the Malcolm Baldrige world, quality, measuring, customer sat, and that was my life for a long time, and long-time church member. And I have been on a ton of mission trips. And just like you said, always felt that we accomplished something, did good, but we never went back to the same place twice. I think we did a lot of relief, a lot of betterment, thinking kind of what you've been thinking back then, but not knowing the answer. One of the last most memorable mission trips we took, we went to the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. It's in the central southern part of South Dakota. And the conference there even had housing because we rolled in these mission trips, one after another. And we did work out in the Indian reservation. And what struck me is that we were building an addition to a house, and observing us for those 3 or 4 days was junior high kids and teenagers. And we started having the conversation that I wonder if we're hurting these folks more than we're helping them. And why aren't we helping those folks learn how to help at least build a house or anything? And so, we just had those questions because right behind us was another mission team, and right behind them would be another, and the same kids would be watching what's going on. And so there was no answers. It was basically, this is the way we do it. We provide a lot of opportunity for churches to bring mission teams in, and I think everyone feels good about it. So there was just something inherently wrong with that. And just about that time, we moved to South America for 2 years. We lived in Paraguay. Only Haiti Nicaragua and Bolivia are poorer than Paraguay. My wife helped run a school, and I did all the kinds of great stuff a trailing spouse gets to do. And while we were there, I also noticed that lots of mission teams came in, and their number one priority, and they were mostly medical, was to go someplace that has never seen a doctor before. And I started to think, well, if that's what you always do, and you never come, you just start thinking about how much good are you really doing in the long term. And then there I met a guy named Martin Burt, and he was the first guy to bring microfinance to South America, maybe even Central America, I don't know. He was a founder and still very active in Teach a Man to Fish. It's out of London. They have maybe 400 schools talking about helping people create value through the things they do. And he also had a sustainable agricultural school, which I worked a lot at. And his theory to all of this is that everybody in South America, especially the farmers, they know how to cook. I mean, they know how to raise food and they know how to survive, but no one's ever taught them how to create wealth. And so that's what he was about. So about this time, we left Paraguay, we came back to the United States, and both Pam and I were eager to find a home for us to get involved in. And oh, by the way, I'm quite humbled to be here and all the stuff that's going on, the amazing work that's being done. But a long time ago, I discovered and I've realized that I can't do everything, but I can do something. I'm just an individual, so what can I do? And so I discovered the Rainbow Network. And so Pam and I've been very active in the Rainbow Network. Pam has things she's involved in. And what we do as a family is that which we are involved in, we support with as much treasure as we can, as much talent as we can, and as much time as we can. And we're not into writing 50 checks a year. We write a couple of checks a year. And this has been amazing that this journey that I have been on personally is the same journey you've been on, the same journey that Keith's been on about it's got to be more than relief. It's got to be more than betterment. And what difference are we making long-term in the lives of these people? So that's what brings me here.
Good.
I'm Tom Schrader, founder and CEO of Cottage Care Incorporated. We are in house cleaning and we're in major markets across the US and Canada. I was raised in the 50s and 60s, and that was a time when the body of Christ was divided between the liberals who were accused of only doing the material side of missions and the physical side of missions, and the conservatives who were accused of only caring about the soul and not about the immediate needs. It's pretty cool, because I think over the decades now, that those are starting to come together, and you're seeing both the liberals and the conservatives care for both of those things, and it matters to both of those. I happen to be active kind of in both camps. I was raised a conservative, but we're going to some churches that are more traditional, and where do you find a traditional church these days? In the liberal camp, actually, for the most part. So we're there, and we're loving the larger body of Christ. Anyway, as a child of the 50s and 60s, and especially in a conservative church, business was you were second-class kingdom citizen if you were in business as opposed to full-time Christian service. Well, I knew from this tall that I wanted to be in business. So I just knew that that's what God wanted for me, so I just kept going. Well, now we come to SATtalks, and what's cool about SATtalks is that you're really bringing business and missions together, because what I'm hearing as a businessman out here is I'm seeing presentations of people with very measurable ways of creating kingdom work that is sustainable. Sustainable is a very popular term these days. I usually would kind of check out of it because I'm thinking it's just one of those words. But the more you think about it, the more you realize how important sustainability really is. And as a businessman, to hear somebody in mission work who's actually in a business making money, talk about sustainability, you have profit, you're sustainable. Now, we founded the business on the basis of being a kingdom business. I mean, everything we do, we have a value statement. We just want, in effect, God's kingdom to come through our business in any way we can, managing people, being examples. But we also then started a mission, in effect. God laid it on our hearts to build children's homes in Rwanda. Long story, but that's what we do. And so we build children's homes in Rwanda, and we house widows who then care for the orphans, and we also support vulnerable children who are those who have a home but have no education or health care. Well, it's one of the ways that we live out our values as a business, and we try to share that with our employees and the vision and all that type of thing. But although our mission isn't particularly a potential for making a profit, I've heard some interesting things today that helped me realize, we need to build a little bit more sustainability into our mission. Even though it's not going to be a profitable mission because, hey, we're housing orphans and we're not going to try to make those orphans make us money. You see, we're housing orphans so that they can live and have health care and housing and all of that. But we can still grow some sustainability. So I am very pleased to have been here, and it's a very exciting work that you're doing, Tom, and I think it's been very gratifying for us to attend.
And I just met Tom and instantly liked him. Anybody with a name like that, I would find to be very likable person. So I say it again, none of us has this figured out. And I think there should be some comfort in that. And that I really believe that as we find each other and we join in the conversation, that in a spirit of humility and the resolve, that we'll have those aha moments. And more we'll move from simple results to solutions, which is really what we need. How do we get into this stuff and start to create the kinds of solutions? And I'm just, this feels, every year that we do this feels like kind of coming home. It's like being with a group of people who get you and you get them, and you can finish each other's sentences. And it's comforting for me to know that there are business people, marketplace people that are leaning into this with the same fervor that I am coming out of the clergy background, that there are pastors and mission pastors, there are not-for-profits, there are people all across the spectrum. The body of Christ is wrestling with this in wonderfully healthy ways. And with all my heart, I believe that this is just part of what he's doing to usher us into a whole new way of doing what it is that he wants to do. That, in fact, the kinds of things that we're talking about is the very lampstand upon which the gospel will go forth. It'll shine upon the things that we do to help people in the here and now, and will give us opportunities to be able to share the hope that we have in the hereafter. And I think that we're going to find evangelism, the gospel, and those things expanding in new and different ways that resemble more the dignity that God has put within each of us and what the kingdom of God must really look like in this life. So thank you, lady, gentlemen, for being here. We hope that you'll be back. And our hope and prayer is that you will bring many more like you to these things. My hope too, Lindsay, and you guys being here, is that more and more millennials will be here. We've got some college students here as well, and I'm hoping that in the years to come that we've got more and more college students as well. So would you join me in saying thank you to these folks for sharing why they're here?